Now we've already talked about the hinge, so let's cover it in more detail. Here's how you do it. You push your hips back, your upper body leans forward, you keep your arms at your sides, knees are unlocking a little bit, and you keep your spine straight. You want to reach this bottom position where you feel a lot of tension in your hamstrings, and now you come back up. You need to understand and master the hinge first because, as you will see in a moment, it's included in almost every exercise. Now let's cover the grinding lifts or the grinds, one of the 3 categories of kettlebell exercises. Exercise number 1 is the deadlift. Shoulder width stance over the kettlebell. We hinge, upper body leans forward. I grab the kettlebell with my straight arms, pull my shoulders back. Now I stand up and back down. Exercise number 2 is the goblet squat. You place the kettlebell half a meter in front of you, swing it between your legs, grab it in a goblet grip. Now hinge a little bit, push the knees out, keep your chest up, squat down, and come back up. Exercise number 3 is the reverse lunge. Clean the kettlebell up like in a goblet squat, shoulder width stance. Take 1 step back, down on your knees, and back up. 1 step back, touch down, back up. Exercise number 4 is the row. I stand shoulder width apart over the kettlebell. I hinge, grab the kettlebell with one arm, and now I pull the elbow up close to my hips. Switching sides. Exercise number 5 is the press. I'm going to show you the double-handed version first. Jump into the thumb grip, grab the kettlebell, elbows close to the body, handle makes contact with the chest, press the kettlebell overhead. Here's the single hand version. Insert your hand inside the window of the kettlebell. Keep the elbow close to the body. Now press up from this position. Exercise number 6 is the windmill. I snatch the kettlebell overhead. We're going to cover the snatch in a second. 1, 2, 3. Now it's in the top fixation. Now both of my feet, I point them to the left side. Now I side hinge. Push the hips to the right side. My T-spine rotates now to the front. I look up to the kettlebell, reach down for the floor, and come back up. Exercise number 7 is the Turkish get-up, and it requires a little forward. It's actually a flow of different exercises into one. The idea is the following. In a standing position with a kettlebell overhead, we want to lay down on our backs and then stand back up. I like to start with the Turkish get-up overhead. Go into a curtsy lunge. Open up the hips. Reach down for the floor. Bring my rear leg to the front. Down on the hips. Down on the elbow. Distributing my weight between my right leg and my left elbow and going down on my back. Arm comes down. Kettlebell touches the chest. Breathe. Press the weight back up. Swivel around the kettlebell by shifting the weight from my right foot to my left elbow. Up on my hands. Now hips go up. I pull my leg in and rotate the hips. Now I shift my whole body weight towards my left foot and turn around and stand up. The final exercise is the farmer's walk. Low tech, doesn't require a lot of skill, and still yields a lot of results. You lift both kettlebells, and then you start walking, and keep your upper body straight and the shoulders back. Now let's jump into the ballistics, and let's cover the kettlebell swing. I'm going to show you 3 popular variants. The first variant is a hardstyle swing, where we use heavier weights, use both hands, and work on our explosiveness. The second variant is a hand-to-hand or hybrid swing, where we still use some explosiveness, but we decrease the energy a little bit so we can swing for longer sets of time. And the final swing variant is the Russian pendulum or the kettlebell sports swing. Although you can use the final variant as an exercise per se, the idea behind it is the Russian pendulum that is most commonly used in the clean and the snatch. With the hardstyle swing, I'm using a 32 kg kettlebell. Shoulder width stance, I hinge, grab the kettlebell, have a straight back, tilt it towards me so that the base is off the floor. Now I'll pull the weight between my legs and hip thrust it upwards. Variant number 2, the hybrid hand-to-hand swing, has a similar pattern. Hinge, Grab the kettlebell, tilt it towards me so that the base is off the floor, and now I switch hands at the top. The major difference between the two is we're using a unilateral aspect of training, which means we're working with one arm and then with the other, which creates a so-called cross-training or cross-education effect. The final variant is the kettlebell sports swing. Before I demonstrate you the exercise, I want to explain the Russian pendulum. Here's how it works. I'll pull the kettlebell between my legs, making contact, and now, as soon as I make contact, I straighten the knees. Then I bend the knees, and now I extend the hips. Kettlebell starts flying. I wait until the arm comes back and the kettlebell comes back, makes contact with the body. I catch it with my quads by bending the knees. Now I am flexing the hips and extending the knees. Then I come back. Boom, boom. Slow motion. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Watch. Now let's cover the clean, and by extension, the clean and press or push press and the clean and jerk. Make sure that your kettlebell swing is down pat, because every mistake that you make in the kettlebell swing will be transferred into the clean and into the snatch. The major difference between the swing and the clean is, as I'm pulling the kettlebell between my legs, I don't hip thrust the weight upward and let it fly, but I hip thrust the weight upward and then I pull the arm close, insert my hand inside the window of the kettlebell, and rack the weight close to my body. Looks like this. Once we have mastered the clean, we jump into the push press and the jerk, because the strict press is already part of the grinding lifts. Now with the push press, I'm doing the following. I'm dipping the knees forward, and now I go into quadruple extension, extending the feet, knees, hips, and my upper back or my spine. This quadruple extension transfers movement energy into my arm and by extension the kettlebell, which helps to press the kettlebell overhead. With the jerk, we follow the same movement patterns like in the push press. We have a dip, we have quadruple extension, we send the kettlebell flying, but before it lands overhead, we fall into the second dip, and then we stand up. Looks like this. There's two major differences between the jerk and the push press. A, we give our legs some additional rest, and B, we decrease the distance that the kettlebell has to travel. The conclusion of the ballistics and the final exercise is the snatch. We follow a similar movement pattern like in the clean. The only difference is now the kettlebell doesn't stop at the hip and we don't bend the arm, but we keep our arms extended and we stop overhead. Advanced practitioners use their upper body as leverage to heave the bell up and drop it back down. Watch. Here are a couple of drills to help you master the most powerful and most bang for your buck exercises that you can do with the kettlebell. Drill number 1 is mastering the single hand swing before you're switching sides. And the single hand swing looks like this. The next drill is called hand to hand clean. It helps you to master your hand insertion. This is what it looks like. The final drill is a high pull turning into a clock snatch to master the snatch. This is what it looks like. Get used to the height that the kettlebell has to travel for the snatch. And now start inserting your hand as early as possible. The snatch is such a complicated exercise to learn, so you want to take it step by step. With the half snatch, we eliminate the hardest phase, the drop, and we only focus on the kettlebell going up. Watch. In the rack. Breathe. And now let's cover the most common mistakes of the grinds and the ballistics. As a side note, there are a lot of mistakes that you can do. So for brevity's sake, I'm only focusing on the most important ones. The most common mistake in the deadlift is a rounded back. Remedy this by keeping the spine straight. The most common mistake in a goblet squat is leaning forward as you go down into the bottom position of the squat. It may be that you're not yet strong enough in your back area. So try to make sure that you stay as upright as possible and maybe push the kettlebell a little bit outwards to help you for counterbalance. The reverse lunge has a similar problem to the goblet squat, and that is leaning forward as we go down into the bottom position of the lunge. And the second most egregious mistake that I see is standing on a tightrope and then losing balance. Make sure you are standing on tracks and keep your upper body as upright as possible. With the row, we have a similar mistake in the deadlift, a rounded back, and instead of pulling the elbow close to the body, people are pulling the elbow away from the body. The single hand press is a little bit more complicated, and the biggest mistake that people make is not having a safe and proper hand insertion. Instead, they have the kettlebell like this. Make sure you are inserting your hand as deep as possible inside the window of the kettlebell. The second mistake is not pressing up in a straight line, but pressing up away from the body, which costs unnecessary effort. The biggest mistake in the windmill is lacking kinesthetic literacy in the hips and maybe some mobility. And then people just try to bend over like this, and then they wonder why it's not working. Think about this side hinge and T-spine rotation. These two moves have to be in place in order to engage into a safe and proper windmill. The getup is unfortunately littered with traps. That's why people make a lot of mistakes. The biggest mistake that I see, however, is from this position, trying to get up and only pulling the leg backwards and not being able to rotate fully. Think about this. You pull the leg backwards and you rotate the hips. In the farmer's walk, aside from not lifting the kettlebells up in a safe manner like you would in a deadlift, is people start walking like the hunchback of Notre Dame. Try to stay as upright as possible. The major mistake in the swing is being two-arm dominant. So instead of using the hips to catapult the weight upwards, and think about this great cue that I want to mention and place right here. Think about stabbing the hips into the floor to activate your hips. And if you don't do this, you start pulling the kettlebell from your arms and it looks like this. Instead of like this. Another important mistake in the swing is missing the timing. So as the kettlebell drops back into the backswing, don't hinge too early. Wait for the arm to reconnect with your body and then hinge. With the clean, we see overlapping mistakes that you see in other exercises as well. A, we're two-arm dominant, so we try to pull the weight up with the arm, and then B, not jumping into a proper hand insertion. So take your time, use your hips, step the feet into the floor, insert the hand inside the window of the kettlebell, and rack it close to your body. In the push press and the jerk, people make a lot of mistakes. But the most frequent one that I see is losing contact between the elbow and the hips. You want to make sure that this contact is always given, because this is how you transfer the energy from your hips into your arms. And if I have the arm out here, I am wasting energy. Maybe yes, there's coming a little bit energy from the legs, but if I have the arm connected, I'm able to distribute the energy way better and use this power to bring the kettlebell overhead. One of the hardest things to learn in the jerk is bending the hips and the knees while extending the arm at the same time. Then people do this. Patience and a lot of reps is the key. With the snatch, we make the same mistakes like in the clean. We are two-arm dominant and we don't have a proper hand insertion. However, another major mistake is bending the arm as the kettlebell goes up. We say once the elbow bends, the power ends. So on your way up, you keep the arm straight, you lock it overhead, and when you drop it, this is where you are allowed to bend the arm again. As a bonus, let's cover the most bang for your buck exercises with doubles.